This is the Parra podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Parramatta Leagues Club, home of the Eels, and also home of Jack's Pale Ale.
Welcome to another episode of the Parra Cave podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Parra Cave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Parra Cave podcast. Troy Warner here, and I am a very disappointed, frustrated, upset, disappointed, I already said that, Eels fan as the Eels went down to the Bulldogs in the traditional King's birthday game on the Monday, 30 points to 12, out at Accor Stadium in front of 59,878 fans. Now, it probably would have been more had the rain not have been around during the day. It was quite cold, actually, as well out at Accor Stadium, as it always seems to be in wintertime, obviously. But no, it just seemed to be extra cold. I think it was about 13 degrees or something. But so maybe that kept a few people away as well. But nevertheless, still a pretty reasonable crowd of nearly 60,000 people. But it was a 5-2 victory to the Bulldogs, but it was 12-all at half-time, and you thought maybe this could still be anybody's game, being 12-all at half-time. Look, very much at the start of the game, from the third minute, actually, I think it was, within 30 seconds of play, there were 6 ruck infringements from the Eels. Now, that was really frustrating from the fans' point of view, obviously. It just was the referee, Gerard Sutton, blowing a set restart inside the 10 metres. It was just like bell after bell after bell in that crowd. You could just hear it, and you could just hear the frustration as well from the fans in the stands. Because, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. Like 6 ruck infringements in like 30 seconds. We as fans were thinking that if this is considering going to keep on happening, then one of the Parramatta players is going to end up in the bin. But that wasn't to be. So, yeah, it's just really frustrating. I have to go back and have a look at the replay to see what they exactly were. One of them was an inside the 10 metres. One of them was a ruck infringement. Sorry, 2 of them were inside 10 metres. Will Penasini, Mitchell Moses. But, yeah, very frustrating, especially at the start of the game as well. Very frustrating from there. The Bulldogs, they scored the first try through Matt Burton. There was an intercept try. Now, questioning whether he was onside from the scrum or not. Maybe that's looking through blue and gold glasses. I don't know. But it was confirmed, and the Bulldogs got the scoring underway. But that was in the 7th minute. But then the Eels, they hit back through Mitchell Moses in the 11th minute. Now, that was pretty much a length of the field try. Zach Lomax, he took the intercept and then found Mitch, who ran I think it was about 80 metres, pretty much heading for that corner. Memories of the Easter Monday game back in 2019 against the Tigers. Not so long a run, that one, compared to this one. But, geez, he's got some speed, the old Mitchell Moses. He got down that sideline and got that ball down. Fortunately, though, Zach Lomax kicked it from the sideline as well, under a lot of pressure from the Bulldogs crowd. That certainly was there booing him during the kick, but he managed to knock it over. which was a good thing, obviously. Unfortunately, a few minutes later, Marcelo Montoya scored the next try, but he and then Stephen Crichton converted as well, so they got out to 12-6. Now, the Eels, they did a lot of tackling in this first half and were really starved of ball, and they obviously didn't have the opportunities that the Bulldogs did, because the Bulldogs had most of the ball throughout the game. It was a 60-40 possession rate, 60% to the Bulldogs, 40% to the Eels, so you could just see how much more ball that the Bulldogs had overall during the game, but especially in that first half. There was in the total game, there was 11 more minutes basically that the Bulldogs had the ball. Completion rate for the game was 90%. That's outstanding from the Bulldogs. Only 67 from the Parramatta Eels. There was a few mistakes made by Jack Williams, Jermaine Hopgood, and also it was Will Penasini as well in possession of the ball, lost the ball, which was very frustrating to see. So only 67% of the ball throughout the game, 25 completed sets out of 37. The Bulldogs, 47 completed sets out of 52. So, look, that time in possession of the Bulldogs really took the juice out of the Parramatta attack, you could say, with them making so much defence making so many tackles and just basically running them out of juice, which was obviously not a good thing there. Great try to Dylan Walker. I think that's his first try in blue and gold colours. It's great to see him get that try. Zach Lomax converted it. It was pretty much sort of right in front. And going into the break, it was 12-all. Just prior to the break, Zach Lomax, he went for a 2-point field goal. Unfortunately, he missed that. But before halftime, there was the sin binning of Viliami Kikau as well. It was kick pressure on Mitchell Moses. Basically, he connected with Mitchell Moses, and look, as we all know, you can't really touch kickers when they're kicking the ball, and the referee gave Viliami 10 in the sin bin. The Bulldogs crowd, they went wild, calling big boos. Even the referee and touch judges got a boo off at half-time as well, probably because of that. And look, at the time of recording this podcast, it has been found that Viliami has got nothing to answer for. There was no charge, no fine. So, fortunately for the Bulldogs, and unfortunately for the Eels, there was no points scored whilst Viliami was in the sin bin. So it was 5 minutes before half-time, and it was 5 minutes after half-time that he was off the field. So 12-all at half-time, and you thought, look, still anybody's game, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. Obviously, Viliami Kikau, he scored a try in the 60th minute, and from that 60th minute onwards, it just looked like the Bulldogs, well, they did. They scored a couple of tries. There was one in the 60th minute. There was one in the 68th minute as well. And they just got those points really, really quickly. Riley Smith, he played, I think, 65 minutes. Joash Papali, he came on in the 65th minute. I was calling for him to come on a little bit earlier, but I just don't think that hooker is his position. Dummy half is his position. Obviously, he's a back. I just think that he isn't made for that dummy half spot. But where do you put him to get into this side? We've all called for him to be in this team, but where does he play in this team? I don't think it's dummy half. Although Riley Smith, he did make 58 tackles. The unfortunate part about that, we know he is a tackling machine. We know he tries his heart out with kick pressure. Unfortunately, though, no runs, no meters at all, no kicks either. So I think, that probably all that tackling, and Parramatta did have to do a lot of tackling in that first half and throughout the game as well. really took it out of him as well. That's why Joe Ash came on. But I would, and I'm sure probably plenty of other Parra fans would as well, like to see Riley have a run or two from dummy half if the opportunity presents itself. So in the end, it was 30 points to 12. As I said, I don't think the score was a true reflection of the game. I guess the bulk of possession for the Bulldogs just tired out that Parramatta side, and they were able to get the victory. One of the things that probably hindered Parramatta as well was the offloads from the Bulldogs. They just couldn't wrap up the ball, Parramatta. It was 16 offloads to 6, and we all know that second phase play can be a bit of a killer for teams, as you pretty much sort of get an extra tackle if you do that offload. So they just couldn't wrap up the ball 16 times offloads, and it just puts more pressure on your defence. One good thing though from Parramatta was there was a quicker play the ball speed. On average it was 3.48 seconds. The Bulldogs 3.51 seconds. But every other stat, the Bulldogs just really reigned supreme, basically. 6 line breaks to 2, 232 runs to 151. The run meters was nearly 1,000 more run meters. Post-contact, 710 for the Bulldogs, 438 for the Eels. So average set distance was an extra 8 metres on average from the Bulldogs. So they just pretty much had it all. There was a big expectation of Lachlan Galvin as well. He came on in the 60th minute, did score a try as well. The Parramatta crowd certainly did give it to him as well. The Bulldogs crowd, they all love him now. Apparently after one game, but we'll just have to wait and see, because there has been a few suggestions of a bit of rumblings in the kennel with Reid Marnie. He came off the field when Lachlan went on, and it was news to Toby Sexton that he was playing hooker and Lachlan Galvin was playing halfback. So is that going to be the moving forward for the Bulldogs? Who knows, but certainly not a very happy Reid Marnie. So could it cause a bit of disruption in this Bulldogs side? You wouldn't want to disrupt it too much if you are coming first in the competition, but nevertheless, it wasn't a hindrance yesterday against the Parramatta side, but moving forward, could it be? I mean, this week is perfect because he is probably he's slotted into Matt Burton's position at 5'8", his natural position, because Matt Burton is the 18th man for New South Wales, so he can't play in the club game, so he's just slotted straight into there. But this is a Parramatta podcast, not a Bulldogs podcast. Let's go to some of the stats from the Parramatta side and run meters again. Zach Lomax, he tops that one with 22 runs, 191 metres, 67 post-contact metres. Isaiah Iongi, 19 runs, 149 metres, 39 post-contact metres. The Fox, playing against his old club, 13 runs, 134 metres, 51 post-contact. Jack Williams, who made a mistake during the game, but then there was a chance there where, and the mistake that he made, there was a chance there that he would have broken the line and potentially scored a try as well. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be for him. He went off the field late with a HIA. 13 runs, 125 metres, 48 post-contact. Sean Russell. Now, Sean, he probably cops a bit of criticism, and unfair criticism, I think. Look, he is not a genuine superstar player, but he does his job. There was a time there where he got belted at one stage by, I think it was Marcelo Montoya, I think, or could have been Max King, the New South Wales rep. It was either one of those two. It came up on the highlights today a little bit later, but certainly he did he caught a good ball, good attacking kick from the Bulldogs put up there, and he caught it. So he cops a bit of criticism, which I think is a bit of unfair. As I said, not a superstar player, but he is, I guess, a fairly solid first grader. 5 runs, 107 metres, 36 post-contact metres. Going to the tackles, as I said, Riley Smith, 58. Jermaine Hopgood. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Jermaine Hopgood, especially around the fan base, about his game and if he is struggling at the moment. And look, I think he is. Does he think he is? Maybe this bye week might give him a bit of confidence, I guess. Maybe just get away from football, but I don't know. People are saying that potentially his mind is still with his back injury that he suffered last year, and that is playing on his mind. But Jermaine is, I guess, good for a mistake or two in the games, and he is frustrated. You can see that on the field when these mistakes are made, but nevertheless, he made 41 tackles in this game, along with Kelma Tuolagi, who also did 41 tackles as well, and does have a mistake in him in defence and attack. But look, there was glimpses of him as well being really good. Jack Williams, 39. Dylan Walker, 35. Junior Paulo, 34. There was a couple of the stats there from the Eels side, and the top performers, you could say, from the Eels side in that respect. Look, I don't know. It was a very frustrating game being a Parramatta fan, obviously. 12-all, you thought it still was going to be anybody's game. Just the lack of, I guess, discipline with those 6 agains and set restarts just really deflated the Parramatta side, having give them do more defence. And look, I don't think the Bulldogs will be... Look, they'll be happy they got the win, obviously, 100% against their arch rivals, but I would have thought that they would have put more points on Parramatta, but it wasn't to be. Parramatta, they have been slowly developing and getting better and better each week. Last week against Penrith, it was 18 points to 10. This week it was 12-all for 60 minutes against the team that's running first. So the team is showing signs. It still is a little bit of a young team in key positions, but they will only get better as well. As I said, they've got the bye this week, and then their next game is against the Gold Coast Titans on a Sunday night. I believe it is Sunday. Yep, Sunday the 22nd of June, 6:15 p.m. at CommBank Stadium. The Titans in 17th position, so you would almost expect Parramatta to win that. Hopefully, we do not get to a situation where it was like Newcastle against Manly, where the team was booed off at half-time. Having said that, it might be a good thing because Newcastle went on to win the game, be it in Golden Point. But look, going into that game, the team will have a big break, which will be good for them. As I said, hopefully maybe this first week the team gets some days off, the players get some days off. Maybe they can get away from football. Apparently I did hear there was a good honesty session in the sheds after the game. The players still believe that they can still make the finals. So, look, they think they can still do that, and they'll be playing the game to do that, obviously. And it all starts against the Titans next Sunday night. But, look, let's just hope maybe this week, a couple of days off, get away from football, and then get straight back into it maybe late in the week, and focus on the rest of the season and get that win against the Titans. And then, look, you never know. Once you get another win, that can give you confidence. And moving forward, they've got a pretty sort of, I guess you could say, hard draw moving on after the Titans. Parramatta play the Dragons down in Wollongong. We know what they can do down there in Wollongong, and then another bye. So look, this is a really there's a bye here, 2 points there. A win against the Titans, hopefully at home. There's 2 points there. The Dragons in Wollongong, we know they're a different team there, but they are beatable down there. 2 points there, and then 2 points in the bye, and then the return bout against the Panthers. And then down in Canberra, we all know how they are going this season. So, look, a really interesting little period, but if they can kickstart that against the Titans next week, Sunday, then who knows? Could go on a bit of a run and go very close, if not make that top 8. So, look, from a Parramatta fan's point of view, yes, it was disappointing to lose against the Bulldogs. I really thought that we had a good opportunity to beat them. They always would be tough to beat, especially at home, especially in front of nearly 60,000 people, especially when they're on top of the ladder as well, and especially after the bye they had and against the Dolphins, the loss they had against them. So, look, they were always going to be tough. But it was just so disappointing that we were in it for so long, but just couldn't get the job done. Unfortunately, the last 20 minutes of the games lately have been where Parramatta have fallen apart. So, and then the other teams have gone on to win the game. So, look, they will learn from that. As I said, they'll have a couple of days off, hopefully, get away from football, get their minds set for coming back and then focusing on the Titans. So, look, it was a tough leave from the stadium yesterday. Look, I must say, the Bulldogs fans at the stadium, there was no, where we were sitting, there was no, I guess, bad behaviour from any Bulldogs fans. There was no real banter either, that I saw anyway. So I must say that was pretty good there. Even leaving the stadium, it was not too bad. So there are some things that are on social media about the Bulldogs fans in Belmore, a way that they're celebrating and the like. So I'll leave that to them. And that's what they're doing, but some of it's not my cup of tea, but that's the Bulldogs anyway. But no, it was look, an experience to be there. It was always going to be there. Now, just before I go, I just want to say a huge congratulations to Adam Martin from the Talking Parra podcast that I am part of. He did organise a event yesterday, pre-game at Parramatta Leagues Club, in conjunction with the Cumberland Throw and also the Eels Foundation, and also Talk to Me Bro mental health charity as well. So and there was a bowling event on there. I didn't do too well. I cannot remember the exact score that I got, but I did not get a strike. I did not get a spare. I was pretty average, to be honest, but all a bit of fun. And look, in the scheme of things, it is all about trying to encourage the NRL to get a mental health round into the NRL, but also too, it is about talking about yourself and your feelings as well. So look, there's a couple of mental health charities there, as I mentioned, Talk to Me Bro, and also Time for a Chat as well. So some great mental health charities there that if you need to reach out to them, they are the experts and they will be able to help you, because it is very important that we do talk about it, because that is just what we should do. We on the Talking Parra podcast seem to talk about it every Tuesday. That is our little therapy session, you could say, but that's just all footy talk. But those guys, those charities, are the ones you want to talk to for anything serious for that. So, look, I just wanted to say that because congratulations to Adam for setting that up. Look, everyone I spoke to there, it was great to see some familiar faces and some listeners of the Talking Parra podcast as well, and some of the listeners of this podcast as well. But it was everyone had fun and everyone had a great day. Hoping we can do some more events like that in the future. So, well done to everyone involved. It was a great day before the game, and we headed to Accor Stadium with our tails up, ready for a Parramatta victory. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be, but nevertheless, it still was a great start to the day. Look, sorry this is a little bit late out, but being a Monday sort of afternoonish game, late game, and then work as well, this was the only time I could get this one out. So thank you for your patience waiting for the game review podcast, but it is out now. And thank you very much for listening and for the support. And look, the Parra Cave podcast, by the fan, for the fans. Go Parra! How you going, mate? Are you a Parra Cave podcast listener?
I am, bro. It's a great podcast. Everyone tune in.
Go Parra!
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Parra Cave podcast. See you next time.